This is Shelley Craft coming to you live on SNN Live. We're at the Growth Capital Expo at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas 2016. We're going to do a Wall Street View with David Morgan of the Morgan Report. It's a newsletter. David, welcome back to SNN Live.
Well, thank you, Shelley. It's great to be with you.
It's good to have you. David, the Growth Capital Expo is for micro-cap companies, investors, sponsors, etc. You were the speaker at the lunch, one of the lunches, and you had a ballroom of investor types. What did you speak on?
Well, I spoke on the relevance of precious metals in today's investing environment and why they're still important.
So I was in that audience, by the way. And I noticed that, you brought out charts, you brought out information, you had historical data, and there were some really interesting facts. Let's speak to some of that.
Well, first of all, the first thing I put up was a quote from Richard Hemphill from the Federal Reserve Board. He's now deceased, and he talked and said in this quote that the most important thing that thoughtful people can think about is the monetary system. And if some of these problems are not resolved, that we could be facing a financial collapse and that something should be done about it. And that's from the Fed itself. So I bring that up because most people don't even know of that quote. And it's very pertinent to the fiat finance system that we now exist in. And I explain that a collapse doesn't mean things change as far as wealth going away. All the wealth stays in place. So it's not a destruction of wealth at all. It's a reallocation of who owns it. So I addressed that, and then I went on and did some drilling down in the financial system, specifically in the precious metals and how they're an important factor in asset allocation.
So I remember when I invited you to come and speak at the lunch, I said, now the Silver Guru's coming. And, it was funny because, sometimes you have a full room of investment bankers and investors. Not everybody's into precious metals. Not everybody's aware of what's going on. And I think it was very informative that you came and spoke to the audience. And I think you lit a few fires in some people's minds about how they should allocate their investment dollars. Could you speak to that?
Yes. Well, first, thank you. The first thing I did was thank you and your family. Shelley's our class act, and it was very much an honor to be able to speak here. And these are people that have the entrepreneur mindset, which I very much admire. And I went through, as you said, why this asset allocation is important. I think that I did set some fires because later on I had about 3 people over time come up to me and said, effectively, wow, I didn't know. And it is important, and, can I get some more information, which I was happy to do for them.
So you talked about gold, silver, platinum. What are some of those relationships to the current status in the market?
Well, platinum right now is it's really not a monetary metal. I mean, classically it is, but in practical terms it's not. And it's basically based on the auto industry. And of course, as I said during the speech, the BDI, the Baltic Dry Index, the shipping availability is huge because there's no ships, but very few traveling the oceans. In other words, trade has come to a very slow sputter relative to what it was during the heydays of the early 2000s. So this is something you have to factor in your thinking. On top of that, we have to look at where are we going as a globe, as a planet, as a nation state. What's the long-term perspective, and what do we really want to achieve? And I think it's beholden on the millennials and to basically take over kind of a financial mess that we're leaving them. One of my biggest aims throughout my life has been to bring this message to more and more people so that better understanding can be held by all. Because in order to correct a problem, you first have to understand the problem. And so I want to be as succinct and clear as possible so that there's no doubt in anybody's mind that this problem really exists. So I basically end with, be real, buy real, and get real, because this is the kind of value, and I spoke about value not only value in like equities or value in a startup company or value building or building value relationships, but the real value that people have internally, and how that was the founding principles that made this country so great, and how far we have gone from there. And I gave the analogy that there's a direct correlation between the debasement of the currency and the debasement of the moral structure of a society. And that seemed to really get a lot of thinking going in the audience because, as I said before, several people came up and had quite a few words for me after my speech.
Let's talk about the Morgan Report. What is it? What do you do with it? Who can use it, etc.?
Well, first off, it's not for everybody, but for a sophisticated investor, it's quite useful. I'm one of the few analysts that does both the commodity side and the equity side. Most newsletters do the equity side only, and most newsletters get into what I call story stocks. They're not really balanced, in my view, between top tier, mid tier, and junior equities or small caps, which I do, but that's not what I do all the time. And I allocate the model where big money goes into big companies, mid money goes into mid companies. And the speculations are a lot of fun. I mean, who doesn't want to buy Silver Standard at 65 cents and watch it go to 40 bucks? Who doesn't want to buy General Molly at 35 cents and watch it go to 12 bucks? I mean, these are the kind of things that we've done, but it's not the focus. The focus is really on how to make as much money as possible with the lowest risk possible. And that's a balancing act, which means you need to do what I've learned the hard way. I've been doing it for years now. But that is, one, time in the market, two, understanding the silver market and other commodities, because Morgan Report looks at everything of value. We look at real assets. Lithium is hot right now. And I've spoken to a couple of lithium companies that you brought here, and thank you for that. Looked at the energy sector. We looked at geothermal. In fact, I met with geothermal, and I've already done a deep drill down, excuse the pun, into that company once before for our mastermind clients. So there was some more synergy here with me than I actually expected coming into your show. So anyway, back on point. What we do is look at the commodity side, the timing side, the equity side. We also look at the trades that I do. You get to look over my shoulder. I guarantee anyone that writes us will get an answer to their question. And we take a film crew with us on any mining trip that we do, so you get to look with us. Like that's like a $2,500 value. How many newsletters do that? None to my knowledge. And we also have a web, not a web bot, but a web, what do you call it, widget that we designed specifically for our subscribers. So if I make an update or an alert, it pops onto your screen, and you know there's an update or alert you need to pay attention to. So we've got a lot going for the money. I mean, the value total is probably in the $8,000 range. If you compare what a good commodity letter would cost you, $2,000, what a good equity letter from Wall Street would cost you probably $1,500. Taking a mining trip, $2,500. A timing service, probably another $1,500. You add it all up, and I give that all for $500 a year. So I have people that are, been long-time subscribers and are pretty happy with the Morgan Report.
Now, David, your website.
It's themorganreport.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, the David Morgan from The Morgan Report, the Silver Guru, and the newsletter. I'm Shelley Kraft. This is SNN Live, and this Wall Street View came at the Growth Capital Expo, Caesars Palace, Las Vegas 2016. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.